In the long and elaborate history of the Catholic Church, only one person has been called the second Christ. More has been written about him than anyone else since Jesus. He is the most painted non-biblical character in history. Saint Francis of Assisi. He was an Italian mystic, known as the patron saint of animals and the environment, who founded the Franciscan order. Saint Francis was born in Assisi, a hill town in Italy, in late 1181 as one of several children of an Italian father, Pietro, and a French noblewoman, Pica. His father was a prosperous silk merchant. Due to his commercial success and enthusiasm for all things French, the father named the boy Francis. Handsome and fun-loving, Francis lived a high-spirited life typical of a wealthy youth, enjoying the pleasures of life. He was surrounded by rich and influential friends and was spoiled by his parents and their wealth. Francis delighted in fine clothes and spent money lavishly, finding joy in poetry and music. Deep within him, he possessed the heart of an adventurer. Despite all this, at times he exhibited glimpses of his later love for charity and his growing disdain for the world.
Francis, I must know what's troubling you, or I shall have no peace.
Pax et bonum. I'm troubled by the emptiness, the affectation of all this. Know that there must be something more. I've yet to know what it is, but I must. I will.
Francis wanted to become a knight. He fought in 2 wars, a civil war in Assisi and another against the city-state of Perugia. In 1201, at age 20, Francis joined the military, but the battle against Perugia proved disastrous. Francis was injured on the battlefield and taken prisoner for a year. During his imprisonment, he suffered a severe illness that prompted him to reconsider his way of life. However, upon his return to Assisi in 1203, Francis resumed his carefree life. In 1205, he left for Apulia to enlist in the army of Walter III. He had a vision that made him return and lose interest in worldly life. Various stories suggest that Francis began to avoid his former companions. He started giving away his father's wealth and attending churches to care for outcasts and lepers. He decided to embrace a life of poverty and service to the poor and sick. Francis said, "When people serve the poor, they serve Christ himself." After a pilgrimage to Rome, he had a mystical experience of Christ in the forsaken country chapel of San Damiano, just outside Assisi. The icon of Christ came alive and told him 3 times, "Francis, Francis, go and repair my house, which, as you can see, is falling into ruins." He took this as a call to restore the ruined church. He secretly sold some cloth from his father's store to rebuild the church. But the priest refused to accept the ill-gotten money. Indignant, Francis threw the coins on the floor. Francis hid in a cave near San Damiano for about a month to avoid his father's wrath. When he returned to town, hungry and dirty, his father dragged him home and locked him in a small storeroom. His father attempted to change his mind, first with threats and then corporal chastisement.
When you wanted to go out into the world to fight, I stood by you. Stand by me now, just this once. Give me a chance to save you.
Freed by his mother, Francis returned to San Damiano. He found shelter with the officiating priest. But he was soon cited before the city consuls by his father. In the bishop's presence, Francis renounced his father and his inheritance. He stripped himself naked in token of this renunciation, and the bishop covered him with his cloak. He wandered as a beggar in the hills behind Assisi for the next couple of months. He spent some time at a neighboring monastery working as a scullion. He then went to Gubbio, where a friend gave him an alms, a cloak, and a girdle. Returning to Assisi, he traversed the city begging stones to restore St. Damiano's. He carried the stones to the old chapel and set them in place. Over 2 years, he embraced the life of a penitent, during which he restored several ruined chapels in the countryside, including the Porziuncola, which later became his favorite. Francis devoted the next 3 years to caring for outcasts and lepers in the woods of Mount Subasio. During a Mass in 1208, Francis experienced a profound moment of inspiration. The Gospel reading of the day, specifically the Commissioning of the 12 from the Book of Matthew, stirred something within him. It prompted Francis to make a life-altering decision to embark on a mission to encourage the rural population to practice penance, foster brotherly love, and strive for peace.
Lord, make me the instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy.
Acquiring a rough woolen tunic, similar to what the impoverished peasants of Umbria wore, he fastened it around himself with a knotted rope. Gradually, he began attracting other young men drawn to his passion and renunciation. Within a year, Francis had 11 followers. The brothers lived a simple life. They spent much of their time wandering through the mountainous districts of Umbria, making a deep impression. Initially, Francis and his brothers operated outside the traditional church hierarchy, which caused some consternation among local bishops and influential figures. In 1209, Francis took his 11 brothers and traveled to Rome to meet Pope Innocent III and establish a new religious order. At first, the Pope declined Francis' request, due to reservations from some of his advisors.
We have read and discussed your rule, and we've decided that the life you and your brothers want to lead is too severe, too ambitiously severe. But you must understand, Francis, your own devotion is not in doubt. But in establishing an order, one must also think of those who come after. They may not be as strong as you. In fact, they're not likely to be.
The Pope had a dream in which he saw Francis supporting the Lateran Basilica. Following this, to everyone's surprise, Francis secured an audience with the Pope, and gained approval to form the new order. The Pope agreed to admit the group on an informal basis, with the understanding that if God blessed their community with growth, they could return for an official audience. With papal approval, Francis established the religious order of the Franciscans in 1210, which would later be known as the First Order. The new order experienced rapid growth. In 1211, while listening to Francis preach in Assisi, a young noblewoman named Clare joined the Franciscan community. She relinquished her wealth and privilege to embrace a life of poverty. Her order, known as the Poor Ladies or the Poor Clares, eventually became the Second Order of Franciscans. Additionally, Francis founded the Third Order of Brothers and Sisters of Penance, whose members chose not to withdraw from the world or take religious vows. Instead, they incorporated Franciscan principles into their daily lives. Over time, the Third Order, now known as the Secular Franciscan Order, expanded beyond Italy. In 1219, Francis went to Egypt hoping to speak about Christianity with the Sultan. A Crusader army was camped outside the city after a fierce battle. Christian sources suggest that Francis was granted an audience with the Sultan, but it is not clear what transpired. But it was a significant event for a Christian to be granted a friendly and peaceful audience with a Muslim leader during the period of the Crusades. Francis also traveled to the Holy Lands during the Crusades hoping to conquer the Muslims with love rather than war.
I pray forgiveness for what Christians have done in God's name.
Many miracles have been associated with Saint Francis. In particular, it is recorded that Saint Francis had a close connection with all animals, especially birds. It is said that when Saint Francis would give a sermon, birds would come to listen. Saint Francis said of birds, "My sister birds, you owe much to God, and you must always and in every place give praise to him. For he has given you the freedom to wing through the sky, and he has clothed you. You neither sow nor reap, and God feeds you and gives you rivers and fountains for your thirst, mountains, valleys for shelter, and tall trees for your nests." Saint Francis was known for his love of all of God's creation. He often referred to Brother Sun and Sister Moon, seeing everything as part of God's creation. One story about Saint Francis relates to how he could tame a wild wolf in exchange for making a deal where the villagers would promise to feed the hungry wolf. Saint Francis celebrated Christmas by setting up the first crib around 1220. He used real animals to create a living scene so that the worshippers could contemplate the birth of the child Jesus in a direct and sensory way. Francis was offered the priesthood, but he refused. He served the Catholic Church as a friar and monk during his life. In September 1224, after 40 days of fasting, Francis prayed on Monte Alverna when he felt a mixture of pain and joy. The marks of the crucifixion of Christ, known as the stigmata, appeared on his body. Francis was carried back to Assisi, where his remaining years were marked by physical pain and almost total blindness. The marks of Jesus' 5 wounds during crucifixion remained with Francis for the rest of his life. After a period of illness and suffering, he died at his beloved Porziuncola Chapel on October 3, 1226, and was buried in Assisi. Only 2 years after his death, he was pronounced a saint by Pope Gregory IX. Saint Francis is considered one of the greatest saints in the Christian tradition and an example of a life lived in imitation of Jesus Christ.